All right, today we're going to do a deep dive on a project I think you guys will recognize, and it's really kind of focusing in on the NFT space and what the opportunities are. Obviously, we've got Breakpoint coming up with Solana. There's going to be a lot of new stuff. This particular project is in alignment with all that. So you guys are going to love it. Stick around for a good one. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Pass. So joining me today is Nick Cabana, who is the co-creative director and founder over at Claynosaurz, and of course, Andrew Pelekis, the CEO over at Claynosaurz. Great having you both.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Excellent. All right, so let's just jump off. We'll start with Nick. And Nick, let's go into a little bit, for most of our audience, some I would say recognize the Claynosaurz brand, so to speak. But for those who might be new, give us kind of a rundown on the size, the scope of the project, your team, et cetera.
Yeah, so Claynosaurz is really a brand of characters focused on cute, quirky little clay dinosaurs that go off on adventures in a fantasy setting. The team is comprised of a wide range of professional industry animators coming from the feature side and from visual effects. Right now on the core team, we've got around 14 with a slew of other freelancers helping out. But it's a pretty big team to pull off what we're trying to do. It's our initial Genesis release was 10,000 collectibles. Today we have over 40,000 assets there, but primarily 12,000 characters that we can kind of leverage for content. And our primary focus is just that is content that kind of engages the audience, engages the fan base using their own collectibles, which is really fun. And our focus was quality above and beyond everything. So we were bringing our knowledge from the animation industry into the game. I've been an animation supervisor, so I've been in the industry for about 13 years as an animator. For about 6 years, I was an animation supervisor. So I've supervised creature work on Game of Thrones, on Paddington 2, Fantastic Beasts, HBO's Dark Material, a whole slew of things. I started my career at Sony Animation, so that's where they've done Spider-Verse and Hotel Transylvania, and eventually made my way to studios like Framestore, that's notably recognized for like Gravity and Guardians of the Galaxy. I've worked on things like Jurassic World, and I've done some music videos as well. So I've worked with Kate Trinata on award-winning music videos, and now I do these cute little dinosaurs. And most of the background of the team is
welcome into the Web3 space, right?
It's been incredible. Like we saw a huge opportunity for doing things differently and incubating IP in this new paradigm, where artists can kind of retain ownership of the assets, and the whole team comes from a similar background. So we've got leaders across the board, and we've got animators that have been involved with Minions, Hotel Transylvania, Spider-Verse. We've got people from Dreamworks. It's a healthy bag of artists.
Andrew, your background interesting as well. And when you guys look at rolling out projects like what you're doing now, you're starting to do a lot of value add for Claynosaurz. Breakpoint is coming up right now, kind of pointing at over 1,000 people coming into on that. Andrew, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going to happen at Breakpoint? What's kind of in store?
Right. So since Buzz's tweet that we've actually increased that number, I think we're over 1,200 now. So we're expecting a big from our community. We're hosting a whole number of events throughout the week. We've got everyone in a sort of hotel buyout situation where the community comes together and all stays together. We're hosting lunches and more casual events in the week, throughout the week, and in the days after that main event. So we're looking forward to all of it. That main event, we're going to broadcast everything into our Discord so that the community that couldn't make it out will still have the opportunity to engage and see what we're working on from their homes or from wherever they are in the world.
So, wow, that's going to be kind of like a little bit of a mini Super Bowl week for you guys. I mean, you've got a lot happening there, along with the release, the cinematic trailer. Talk to me about what that release really means to the Claynosaurz project, but more importantly, maybe even the community? Where do you guys see that going?
It means a lot to us. It's definitely a labor of love for the team. It's a statement piece for sure, because it for us it kind of leverages our know-how, and it's in the quality of what you'd expect from any sort of feature style work. So even in, let's say, the Web 2 world,
Right.
it's going to be recognized for the quality and the storytelling that comes across in that video. For us, it's a little bit of like a primary touch point for fans, and we wanted it to kind of lend itself to familiarity, so that people can understand the brand, can understand the larger story, and once they see that, it's a lot more tangible that this can one day become episodic or movies or games.
Right.
So it's kind of like the wall of quality, and then when people kind of get introduced to short form content and stuff like that, they can go back to this brand trailer and understand that the bigger picture. And for the Web3 fans, what's going to be really special to them, and maybe we'll get into this later, is a lot of the ideas in the cinematic is ideas that were leveraged through them, through the pitches they had, through the feedback they've given us for about a year. There's a level of internal pop culture that will come across in this trailer.
There's not as many that go as deep as what you guys have done. Is this a bigger kind of story arc that you guys are trying to create into a variety of different, multimedia experiences? What's kind of the goal there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head in that, one of the problems that we see with a number of early projects in the NFT space is a lack of quality. And I think Nick spoke to that just now, that we're trying to bring this Pixar Disney quality into the NFT space. And that's where our team comes from. We think this is imperative for bringing people into the space.
Yeah.
A lot of other projects, they have interesting art, but it doesn't necessarily resonate with a wider community. And it's very tough for them to grow outside of that Web3 space, if you will. And we believe that great communities have formed around those projects. And just like ours, we think we have a really great community forming around our project. But in order to make that community larger and to turn this into a brand that resonates with a larger population, the quality has to compete at that Disney level, or at
Right.
that level when you're turning on Netflix, for someone to say, hey, I want to click on this objectively for no other reason than the fact that it looks really great.
In the space, there was always a focus on over the top mystery without really getting into characters so much. We've seen that with some of the videos from Yuga or even Artifact, where early on there wasn't much of a. It felt like the trailers were engineered for hype without really explaining what it's all about. Yeah. And as storytellers doing this, for larger companies, for over a decade, for most of our team, like, our approach was, well, if this is the first time you see this video, you get it and you understand these characters, it makes you smile and you want to learn more about them. And that was the goal, really.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the problem right now, that unfortunately Web3 has a bit of a moniker on it, that there's a lot of cash grabs out there. And to your point, Nick, in many cases, the hype is more important than the actual storyline and kind of what the evolution of what that project's really going to be about in the future. So it's good to see, projects like what you guys are doing start to really understand that. And obviously you guys bring the experience from a Web 2, and an entertainment environment that can really kind of translate. I want to jump over into the project itself. We're going to show a couple of things on screen, and I want you guys to explain classes and foraging. All right. Or foraging, not foraging. I'm thinking of another game. So let's go into that. And either one of you can kind of jump onto it. Let's jump into that real quick. Just classes in general.
Sure. So the class selection is meant to be the first interactive component for the existing NFT collections. We want to create, sort of, as you touched on, an entertainment experience that's broader than just here's a piece of art and enjoy it, and maybe there's some artificial utility throughout a longer period. We want to create something a little more engaging, a little more interactive. So the first step in that is for the NFTs or character NFTs to select a class. And that class will be bound to your Claynosaurz once you pick it. As as you've displayed on the screen, there are different permutations of how you can do that. The exact mechanics will be you use our Claymakers to forge your class. So you would put a Claynosaur inside of a Claymaker with the appropriate 3 clay combination to get the class you're looking for. And out would pop your Claynosaur now with class selected. Yeah. And that'll be the beginning of your journey on the interactive side into what we're building.
If you look at these pictures, like, again, I've spoken to Dungeons and Dragons and Masters of the Universe. We were heavily inspired by those properties. It's what some of us grew up with. Just as a storytelling tool, you're dealing with thousands of dinosaurs that are all kind of, they're super colorful, they're vibrant, but they're all a little bit similar. They start in their most basic of forms. And the plan here was you're able to over time kind of evolve them, have them wear different pieces of armor, and as a storytelling tool, it's something we can leverage heavily in our content, whether it's short form or slightly longer form. We can build narrative cinematics around the release of something. It's quite similar to what we've seen other franchises like even Clash of Clans do.
Right. Yeah, that's a very critical point too, I think, with what you guys are building there. All right, so some structure of the project itself. Let's get into a little bit about how people could get involved. I was looking at Magic Eden. You got obviously character collections there, but you could also go into resources and even items. When someone is new and maybe they're going to go get their first NFT and they like what you guys are doing as a project, where would you start? Where would you start here with something like this?
You've definitely got to start at the top of that page with a character. So, the character is the most important integral part to participating in the world. So you can do that through the original collection, which is the Claynosaurz collection. Mm-hmm. We also have the second collection that we did, the Call of Saga collection. Both of those are character collections. So you would pick a character from there. And then all the other stuff beyond that, we just touched on the clay and the Claymakers. Those are utilitarian in that they allow you to change classes, and they'll be sort of part of the resource set that you'll need to go through the world over time. You can imagine that in Claynotopia, clay will be imperative. And then the other things beyond that are there are little marketing activations that we had done in real life events throughout the year, the croissants, the pizzas, the tacos. Those will also transmute themselves in the Claymaker into items or companions that apply themselves to your main character. Okay. So you definitely need to start with the main character to enjoy all the other things in the universe.
And really, when you think about that, let's go over to the topic of plushies. So I know you guys are getting ready to release something out. I think it's early November. Talk to me a little bit about that, because there's obviously a little bit of history out there within it. If you just look at what happened with the Pudgy Penguin, obviously with the Walmart release. How are you guys going to do this? Are you going to do it differently? What's kind of the plan?
Yeah, we're definitely doing it a little bit differently. We want to retain the sense of collectorship around what we're producing, and that extends itself into the physical aspect of these plushies and things beyond that as well. Mm-hmm. So rather than going big and getting into Walmart, which is a feat in and of itself, we're taking an approach of serving the community on the collector's side. We believe that communities form around collectibles in particular because it fosters this sense of sort of community with one another and celebrating the collection, engaging in longer term brand loyalty, and in the long run results in user retention. And so the idea is to maintain this collectorship even into the physical realm. So the first launch that we're doing is going to be on November 3rd at noon Eastern time. We're doing an open edition, which means that you can order for a period of 48 hours between November 3rd and November 5th. And then once that window closes, that edition will never be produced again. And so that's the first launch of our plushies coming shortly after Breakpoint for our community.
Yeah, and for us, we definitely wanted to focus on we wanted these products to be kind of showstoppers. So for us, the approach was like, if you're a mother walking in the aisles somewhere, whether it's Barnes and Nobles or wherever we can distribute these things, if you've never experienced the Claynosaurz brand, you will still turn your head and be like, whoa, like I've never seen dinosaurs like these. Like these are really special. They make me smile. They're full of personality and color.
All right, so let's talk about scale. Because beyond 10,000 holders, are there some other opportunities for collectors and just people in general that are interested in maybe joining the Web3 community, especially around a project like this, where people can get involved without owning a SOAR?
Yeah, I think scale is important, especially if you're starting a brand and if you have the aspiration that we have. Part of what we're doing is we hope to onboard folks into an entertainment platform that will nurture our community and serve a larger community. That platform is meant to be built on chain, but not necessarily feel as though there's as much friction as there is in typically onboarding into Web3. And so we're going to use sort of typical login mechanisms that will allow people to feel a natural onboarding process into that platform. And inside of there, we want to create an environment where new community members can interact with old community members. Our NFT holders can interact in there. Equally, our plushies will have a digital counterpart that will also exist in that universe. And they can all sort of explore the world together. And it won't necessarily feel like NFTs for the average consumer. But those of us that are familiar with NFTs and that technology will appreciate and understand that this application is built on chain and will enjoy that as well.
All right, so let's go into the roadmap. I want to kind of hit on a couple points here. One is I want to just show My Pet Hooligan. Here's an example of one. Now these guys are potentially looking at kind of going the omni media route, which is starting to integrate other scenarios for the brand itself and for the integration. In this particular case, a film. Would that be a potential for what you guys are doing at Claynosaurz?
Yeah, I think on the horizon, making episodic content or higher production value content in the form of a film is something that we would explore. We think that getting there should be a journey, though. And part of that journey is what I've described in having these collections be released in such a way where they still feel like collectibles and retaining that feeling for the existing community and the growing community. And then telling a story over time. And I don't know that a movie would necessarily be the end goal on the roadmap we have now, but episodic content is really well placed for telling a story of that nature.
Right.
And we think that it's something that it's worth pursuing in the long run for sure.
Okay, so that's definitely not a no. So I like the direction you guys are taking with this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about games itself. More games coming. What's that look like in terms of the roadmap? I was just looking at a tweet here by Octo Gaming, just showing a little bit about what you guys have been doing, up to now. Where is this going? Can you kind of give us some alpha here?
So I think on the Octo Gaming side, this was a wonderful opportunity early in the year where we had met these folks and they were keen on building a game with us. We thought it was a great way to activate the community early on in the life of our collection. Mm-hmm. We are now focusing our efforts on building the platform I described, which I think the background of that is going to be actual visual storytelling rather than an RPG style game. Nonetheless, it does offer the opportunity to eventually add games into that. So at the moment on the roadmap, we haven't got any new game coming out. We are focusing ourselves on that platform, but equally the platform offers a wonderful opportunity to eventually have these types of games inside of it. And not just one game, but as you can imagine, exploring the world, you might have a few different things all across it.
There seems like there's so many opportunities here for you guys to kind of expand in some other areas, especially around partnerships. Let's talk about that. In general, partnerships, is there anything that's coming that you guys can talk about now, or what's kind of the roadmap for the partnership side of things? I can think and dream up a ton, but where are you guys thinking you're going?
There's a number of opportunities. You sort of, I think some of them are obvious. You've got one on the screen now, which is sort of licensing deals with toys and things like that.
Yeah.
There's a few opportunities like that sitting in front of us. And those are early conversations and nothing to report on that side now, but definitely the opportunity is there. We also touched on episodic content, and I think there are other potential partnerships with larger production studios that could support that kind of effort. that's also something that we're in discussion with. But again, early discussions, call it business development, keeping the options open. We're always going to veer towards whatever strategically is best for ourselves and our community. And but there are a plethora of options down those partnership routes that you're describing.
There are no dinosaurs that look like these. And again, we used our expertise to kind of curate a design that would lend itself to toyification, and really have like an archetype silhouette for all the species across the board. And that was the play here, so that it could eventually lend itself to licensing and co-branding and things like that.
All right, so I look at this and I think co-branding, licensing, we're getting into the world of really kind of Web 2 and the evolution of what we've seen around entertainment and gaming in the past. Do you feel, and this is kind of a tricky question, but do you guys feel that Web 3 should take a different path in terms of how to engage in these partnerships? Because I fear that I don't want to see kind of the same old. It just seems like there's so many new opportunities as far as a creative concepts around that. Have you guys thought about that for how those partnerships would actually be done in the future?
We've thought about it a lot, actually. So we think that part of what we're doing is innovative in the sense that we're starting from Web3. We're starting on the digital collectible side and building a brand in almost a backwards fashion, where the traditional entertainment sector will put a lot of capital up front, invest it in a game or a movie, and if it's successful, you start to build into toys and merchandise and collectibles and build out your base of super fans and fans beyond that. In our case, we've come to market with digital collectibles as the first thing introduced by the brand, and curated a group of a wonderful community, or in other words, a super fan group early on in the life of the brand. And so our view is that Web3 is very ripe for this, in that collectibles bring communities together, and right now digital assets are critical. Young generations, they interact much more online, and there's tons of statistics about this. So you have to imagine that collectibles on the digital format will be most important. And community formation, especially nowadays, is happening ever more online as well. So, our view is that this is the way to build an entertainment brand going forward, is curate that community early on in the brand life cycle, and then grow up slowly with that community, rather than the inverse of a big upfront investment and hoping for the best. We think that this is the way to do it. So our view is we're kind of trailblazing a path for not only the approach to Web3 brand building, but for entertainment brand building as a whole. And if we can do that, Claynosaurz would just be like the first iteration of what we hope to be many future big entertainment brands.
AR, VR, what's kind of on the roadmap there?
I'd say, the platform that we discussed earlier with the visual storytelling platform that I discussed, we've got some AR stuff in there that we're working on. VR would probably be in there as well. I think we're starting with AR. It's a little bit lower lift to start with, but definitely there is a future there as well. Again, younger generations immerse themselves in new technology, and Claynosaurs are cute little dinosaurs. So we've got to be wary of what's coming up and what people like and enjoy to do with in their entertainment lives, so to speak.
I'm going to play a clip. Well, it's just, I'm just going to show it on screen, but this is in reference to, projects around dialect and what's happening there with you guys, especially with Breakpoint coming up, Phantom, the integration of what we've seen within these kind of communities like this. Can you share more about what you're planning here?
Yeah, actually, we've been speaking to Phantom and those backlinks. They're very important, we think, to point people into the right direction. I think you touched on it earlier, in that there's a lot of collections and there's a lot of different places to look for your information. The NFT space is not necessarily very cohesive, but people all have wallets, and inside of there you have your NFTs. So to have those backlinks pointing into where people need to be is an important part of this, and we think it's a natural extension of the technology and breaking down those sort of frictiony walls that we were talking about earlier. So we've got plans to have links in there to a number of the things we're announcing at Breakpoint. Everything from the class selection and the website, all the way through to the trailer and the plushies as well.
I was just showing a tweet here in reference to the Solana mobile collab. So this one, first of all, is super smooth, very, very unique, and I think one that a lot of people could learn from in terms of how to take a project out like this. Anything else planned for the Saga users? Solana.
The Saga users, they've got the same benefits as all the OG users. So that collection, like we said earlier, is a character collection. They get to participate in the world equally, just like every other Claynosaur. There is, the class selection is coming out first and foremost for the original 6 species. And we will also have that come out for the Call of Saga collection eventually as well.
When you walk away from Breakpoint and you think about the next thing that you guys would jump into to really kind of get a Breakpoint level exposure and release of new project UX or all sorts of strategy down the road, is there anything coming up for 2024 you could share?
I don't know that we've got the 2024 lineup of events totally hammered in yet, but definitely we love to host these kinds of events, bring our community together. It's always great to meet people. Like I said, we're starting with the super fan and then building out from there. So community events are an important part of that. Also it's important for us to be at industry events. Nick attended a few of those this year at the licensing fair, at the toy fair.
Nick, I'm kind of curious. You're going to some of these old school events that are traditionally done by toy makers and game makers, and you probably get a little different vibe. Is there anything specific that you feel like, hey, we can crack this code if we can just get these guys to really understand what we're doing?
That was always our goal, right, Paul? Is like we wanted to be a familiar face, and I think that makes people feel safer. So a lot of us come, again, from DreamWorks, Sony, that background. When I was at SIGGRAPH, and I got to present there alongside CoreWeave and NVIDIA, that's no small feat. Like you don't just walk into those conferences. And of course, I was probably the only Web3 guy there. But it's about narrative. It's about the hook. And for us, the hook is these beautiful characters that look like they belong in that industry. And we have a reputation already in Web2. So we tell the story of how we're incubating a new paradigm in developing IP. And then we lead into Web3 and why we were able to do it as a lean startup. And I think that's really pointing it to that demographic, especially with the writer's strike happening and a few other things. Right. Heads are turning. We've had applicants from Pixar most recently. So about a year ago, we sounded a little bit crazy. Now less so, and it definitely helps. And like Andrew was saying, we're going to do a healthy mix of both. It's really important for us to branch out and attend things like SIGGRAPH, Comic-Con, those kind of things. It's healthy for the brand. And we'll have that one for you, one for me approach where we have a big presence in the Web3 conferences as well, because that's super important to the existing
I would agree.
diehard fan base.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Nick and Andrew, it has been great having you on the show today. Thank you so much for stopping in. We love to break down projects like this and do deep dives. So it's been awesome having you guys.
Great. It was a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having us.
You bet. All right. So maybe you guys are tuned in over on the podcast side of things. Well, you just missed a unbelievable amount of graphics that you need to come over here to YouTube and check out. Just, of course, if you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure and just hit subscribe right now. And one of the things we try to do here on this show is really give you an idea of where blockchain and Web3 is going and how it applies to so many different industries, including what you're seeing right here in the entertainment sector, what we'll see in gaming, and then what we're going to see in traditional business. Because I think a lot of businesses are going to start to utilize tool sets like what Claynosaurz is doing in terms of brand partnerships. Just think about, some of the big retailers, what that might look like in the future, entertainment brands, all that kind of stuff. That's why what we do here on this show is super important for the future of where all that's going. If you're not part of the Diamond Circle, get in now. It's very easy and it's free. All you have to do is click the link down below. If you guys want to catch me out there on X, it's @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.